Hey, how's that? Better? I'm going to go on chat and see. To me it looks better now. I don't know why. Audio's great, just looks like maybe the camera's not clean. Something, I don't know. It looks, from what I'm looking at myself, it looks better. Anyway, as long as you can hear the audio, we're good. That's what's important. Okay, so Brahman is by quality. Brahman is not like a position you get in school. If you have a certain amount of knowledge, you get a diploma. That's materially it works that way. But in Varnashram society, you will need knowledge for your particular service or your particular Varna, but you also need qualities. So therefore Krishna says in the Gita, Guna, Karma. You understand a person's position not just by their karma, but by their guna. Okay, he can do this. What are his qualities? Because to fit within a certain varna, you have to have certain qualities. And so now, Prabhupada's quoting the qualities in Bhagavad Gita of the Brahman. Interestingly, then after Prabhupada quotes the qualities, he equates the qualities to actions. He's sama, equipoised, so in action he deals with people easily. He's sense-controlled, that's an action. Titikshava, he's tolerant, in action. He's honest, in action. He has knowledge, he applies knowledge. Ashtika means religious, as far as I remember. So then it says Brahma Karma Subhavajam. These are the activities of the Brahmins. Okay. So now you can evaluate yourself. Hold on, somebody's reading out there. I don't know if they're reading in the hallway or they're reading in another room, but I don't know if you can hear it. But don't go away, I'm right back. Nothing can be done about it. We have background. I got the computers off. Now we have somebody reading in Spanish in the background because I told her to read yesterday. So now she's getting back at me and reading. So, sama. Sama means equipoised, sometimes translated as peaceful. Dhamma means sense-controlled. So Brahmins are the highest class of people, and the highest class of people are the most sense-controlled. In our society, we do not evaluate people based on their ability to control their senses. We evaluate them on their ability to achieve material success. You will not see magazines of what we call losers, sense-controlled losers. In America, you won't see a magazine of sadhus or renunciates as being honored and put on a pedestal. It's the people who have the money, it's the people who sing well, who act well, who play sports well, the people who own companies, people who have good brains for business and big bank accounts. They're generally honored. Of course, philanthropists, humanitarians are honored sometimes, but not as much as rock stars, movie stars, business tycoons, sports heroes. So Dhamma means self-control. Everybody can appreciate self-control, but it's not necessarily that we honor people. We're self-controlled. But the idea is that if a person is not self-controlled, there's a tendency they will exploit others. And Brahmins, if you want to be a Brahmin, and you should be, then your outstanding quality, your fundamental quality is that you're going to help people. Especially help people become Krishna conscious. And the reason that you do this is because you are self-controlled. You're not selfish. You're not thinking about what you need. And because you're not thinking about what you need, you can think about what someone else needs. And if you're always thinking about what you need, you can't think about what other people need. So, therefore, a Brahmana is free of any desire to exploit others. All he wants to do is help others. And So therefore Prabhupada's saying, if you don't have a society in which there is a class of men who just want to help others, you actually don't have human society. And then Prabhupada would say in all your United Nations, League of Nations, this ism, that ism, this resolution, that resolution, it misses the point. So what it's doing, it's kind of altering the problem and trying to adjust the problem. It's not going to really solve the problem, because you need a Brahminical class. The Brahmins should be the advisors to the president. Whoever becomes president needs some Brahmin advisors. So then you have titiksha, tolerate. Now, one thing you should know about this, Prabhupada said here, he said satya. First, and that's not in the verse, satya. The verse starts sama. Samvadama tapo socham. And Prabhupada starts satya sama. So satya means goodness. So what Prabhupada's saying is Brahman. How do you know who a Brahman is? Is a Brahman is situated in goodness. And therefore, when we got initiation, Prabhupada said, for 6 months or 1 year, you follow the regulative principles, you chant your rounds, and then we will consider you for initiation. Because then, if you followed the regulative principles for a year, your Dhamma, your sense control. And titikshava, you've tolerated. Who did you tolerate? What did you tolerate? You tolerated yourself, your own desire. You controlled it. And it's said that when a Brahmin is initiated and they get their Brahminical thread and they get their Gayatri mantras and Pancharatriki mantras, that unless they're situated in goodness, the mantras won't have any effect. So it's not that everyone should say, make me a Brahmin, I want to become a Brahmin, I have to become a Brahmin. Although that idea is good, you can do deity worship and you can live a more Brahminical life. But to not be a Brahmin and take Brahmin initiation doesn't make you a Brahmin. That works the other way around. First you actually live as a Brahmin, then you take Brahminical initiation. So, Dhamma, sense control, that means all these are qualities, all these qualities described here. The Prabhupada's quoting the Gita, they're all qualities that one attains when they're in the mode of goodness. So Brahmins are in the mode of goodness. Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras are not in the mode of goodness. So they won't have all of these qualities. They'll have qualities which are inherent within those modes of nature. The best of those qualities in the modes of nature. Even if you say Shudra is the mode of ignorance, but the Shudra is a servant. They're very devoted and dedicated servant. So they have specific qualities which characterize that particular Varna. So we're saying here that what characterizes the Brahminical Varna is Satyam, goodness. And these first three qualities are all about sense control. And then the next one, Samodama Tapo Socham, clean. Brahmins are clean. Not everyone in the world is clean. Some people are clean and they're not Brahmins. But all Brahmins are clean. Clean, you have two kinds of clean. One is there's no spots in your shirt, even though you've worn the shirt for 5 days. That's not actually clean according to standards of what we call ritual purity. Ritual purity is that if it's cotton, it has to be cleaned every day. Then it's pure. If it's silk, silk is always pure. Just put it in the wind and it's pure. If you want to do deity worship, then you have to bathe. You have to put on fresh cloth. You can't take the cloth in the bathroom. Theoretically, you can't even take it outside because it's contaminated. So that's ritual cleanliness, ritual purity. Something touches the ground, you have to put water on it or touch it to your head or both because it's contaminated. If it touches your foot, you have to put it to your head, put water on it. That's ritual purity. Although materially it may appear clean, ritually it's not. Your clothes have been in the bathroom, you've slept in your clothes. What's the problem? They're clean. I've worn them for 5 days, but they're not dirty. Well, they are dirty. You just don't realize it. Huh? Okay, so Then you have arjavam, honesty, and it. Prabhupada says sometimes the Vaishya will say little lies to make money. But the Brahman's quality is that they're thoroughly honest. They always tell the truth. And of course, Prabhupada has said the highest definition, or the real definition of telling the truth, is to tell about Krishna, because Krishna is the supreme truth. And if you talk about Krishna, you're telling the truth. And even if you're telling the truth and you're not talking about Krishna, that's morally it's true, but on the absolute level it's not true. But of course here we're talking something about truth, Brahminical truth. There has to be a class of men that are thoroughly honest. We were reading this morning that another quality of a Brahmin is that they're full of compassion, and the quality of any leader is that they're compassionate. And of course, a Vaishnava is compassionate, that's their natural quality. But to be in a leadership position in society, at least in Varnashram society, the primary qualification is compassion, because the leaders have to look to the welfare of their students. And if they don't look at the welfare of their students, not their students, the welfare of the citizens, they just have to be focused on welfare. And as we said before, because they're not selfish, they're not thinking about what do I need, what do I have to have, how I can get ahead, how I can move this person out of the way, how I can acquire more. Then they can actually think about helping people. And until we stop thinking about getting ahead materially, there's always going to be opportunity to take advantage of someone. And that's for the Brahmins, they live in poverty. Another quality of a Brahmin is they're not trying to get ahead materially. Actually in Vedic society, Brahmins are not allowed to make money. They're not allowed to work for money. All their money comes from donations. Of course, in our society today, you try to be a Brahmin, you could go broke and starve and live on the street, because people don't respect that Brahminical culture. But in Varnashram, there was no money attached to teaching, because whenever there's money, there could be material motivation. And Brahmins would teach one student, they would teach 1,000 students, it didn't matter. And their students were the ones who supported them. That's where all their money came from. And that was the system. So some Brahmins may have had more wealth than others. Sometimes kings would endow Brahmins with great wealth. But even when they had wealth, generally you would see that they would live in very simple homes, very small. That was what it meant to be a Brahmin. Accumulation is not part of Brahminical culture. And then you might say, well, there are many Brahmins in the Hare Krishna movement who have nice homes, nice jobs. And yeah, that's true. But in Varnashram, when someone is a Brahmin, that's what they do. But in our movement, you might be a Brahmin, but during the day you have a job, and that's not Brahminical. You're working in IT, so during the day you're doing some Shudra work. And you may have samskars of a Vaishya also, or whatever. So Kali Yuga is very mixed. But as far as possible culturally, our culture is meant to be this samadhamma, taposocham, arjavam, shantir, peaceful, arjavam, honest, jnanam, vijnanam, knowledge, realization, and religion. So as far as possible, we should live simply. And when we live simply, if God graces us with wealth, we can use that. That's Brahminical. Actually, traditionally, Brahmins did not hold wealth. Any wealth they had would be spent. And Prabhupada said, they wake up with zero, they may collect 100,000 in donations. By the evening, it's all spent. Everything is employed in service to others. That's Brahman. So we could see how much society needs Brahmins. And Brahmins, they guide people. They're the ones who possess knowledge. They're the ones who understand what people need to understand to perfect their life. So Prabhupada said Brahmins are the head because they have the brain. They're the ones who can give knowledge. And if you're raised in a Brahminical society, then You won't end up like we did as teenagers, wondering who we are, where we're going, where we've come from, and what life's about. You already know that. You've been trained since 5 to understand that. Trained by who? By Brahmins. So, Srila Prabhupada says, now we've lost that Brahminical culture. No one will send their children to school to be trained as brahmacharis. So then Prabhupada quotes Bhagavatam 1:2:19, this verse, Tato rajastamo bhava, kamolobat nayaschaye, cheta eta anaviram stita statve prasidati. And this verse says, when you're in goodness, then passion and ignorance is finished. And at that point you become satisfied. So this is interesting. Because in our society today, there's so little sattva. And one of the aspects of sattva is that you become satisfied. It's just the nature of sattva guna. And everything in sattva guna is better. It's like, let's say, give an example for the sake of an example. I don't have a better one now. You go to a restaurant and it's not such a nice restaurant. It's a little dirty. There's flies. The waiters, their clothes are stained. You see that the chairs, they look a little dirty. You know, like your typical restaurant in India. No offense. No, they have better restaurants. But they have many like that, right? And so you're from America, and you're just feeling like, no, this is not the restaurant. And then you move into another restaurant, and then it's very clean, it's very up to standard, at least based on your standards of the West. And you get in there and you say, oh yeah, this is good. The waiters are all are well dressed, attractive, the tables are clean, the chairs are clean, menu looks good. And then you're satisfied. So sattva guna is something like that. Like everything about sattva guna is just pure, it's clean, it's good, it's satisfying. And therefore, when people are in rajagun and they're trying to be happy, that's very difficult because you need some sattva. Without sattva, you just go through this vicious cycle of pleasure, pain, pleasure, pain, pleasure, pain, because that's the nature of passion is always followed by pain. So, if we're going to become Brahmins, one of the characteristics is that we need to be satisfied. Whatever Krishna sends us, we need to be satisfied with. That's a Brahmin. Brahmin is not endlessly trying to accumulate. Brahmin is not endlessly trying to expand his empire. Brahmins live very simply. And because they're in the mode of goodness, they can live simply. Because, as I said, in goodness you're satisfied. So it's very easy to live simply. So they're happy living simply. And they're happy dedicating themselves to the welfare of others. So Brahmins are really like sadhus. And Vaishnavas are automatically Brahmins. Okay. So, when you're in passion and ignorance, this verse says, you're going to be full of lust and greed, etc. That's the nature of passion. If you want to overcome lust and greed, you have to get out of passion. It's just, you may be temporarily may be able to get out of it in other ways, but until you get out of passion, it's going to be there. I mean, it's interesting because as you know, or many of you know, I've studied a lot of books on self-development, uplifting oneself, becoming more controlled. And there's not one book that anybody talks about controlling sex. Isn't that interesting? That they understand that's something you can't control, which then, therefore, enables us to understand that none of those teachers have been able to come to goodness, because in goodness, your desires are pacified. It's just the nature of goodness. It's like that restaurant. Oh, this restaurant is good, I'm satisfied. I'm not hankering for any more. So none of these people that I've met, maybe there's one or two, maybe Indian, but Western, never talk about controlling the tongue, controlling the belly. Well, maybe belly because you don't want to get overweight, but only in relation to being overweight would they talk about controlling the tongue and the belly. And even if they'll talk about diet, they'll talk more about controlling the belly. Yeah, eat what you like, just eat less. Or don't eat the fattening foods or whatever. But still eat a little bit of what you like. And as far as sex, that's not even conceivable in their minds that that's something you could control. Because that's symptomatic of the mode of passion. In the mode of passion, you can't imagine controlling that. And neither imagine or actually do it. Unless you're sick. Or somehow you hate the opposite sex and you can't get near them. Which is true for some people. But when you're in sattva, dhamma, sense control, shantir, peaceful, sama, equipoise. Yeah. So that's what this verse just said. Tad tato rajastamo bhava. After getting out of rajas and tamas in all the kama and the lobha, the lust and the greed, etc. You come to goodness, there you're satisfied. Yeah. So Prabhupada says greed simply means you're not satisfied with what you have, and then Prabhupada says you should be satisfied. Just the minimum. So then Prabhupada says, all right, just take what you need for the body. That's it, don't take more. Then Prabhupada says, so interesting. Let me read this. These things are necessary, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. As long as the body's there. Ahar nidra bhayamatuna. Eating, sleeping, mating, defending. But this should be decreased, not increased. That is human civilization, not to increase. Just like the Goswamis in Vrindavan. They did not come here to increase. Ahara nidra bhayamatuna. No, they came here to decrease. Nidrahara viharakari vijito. That is wanted. This is Vrindavan Vashi, not to live in Vrindavan and increase this ahara nidra bhaya maituna. That's not Vrindavan Vashi. The monkeys are also living in Vrindavan, and the dogs and the hogs are living in Vrindavan. But they don't know how to decrease ahara nidra bhaya maituna. You'll see the monkeys. They're in Vrindavan. You'll find one male monkey followed by 36 female monkeys. That is not Vrindavan Vas, living in Vrindavan. There's a Prabhupada saying, you have to live in Vrindavan as a Brahman, not as a monkey. Now, as we're reading this, we can see there's a lot of people that live like monkeys. Yes? A lot of men. Eddie probably knows a lot of men who are actually monkeys in human bodies, right, Eddie? You've met them, too many of them, I'm sure. Yes. So Prabhupada's saying then, the goal of spiritual life is to decrease eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Actually, it's meant to really bring it to zero at some point in life. That we're, as devotees, we look at the world much differently than non-devotees. The non-devotees are thinking, eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Well, they're probably not thinking about defending so much. Well, defending their properties and families, yes. But on a regular basis, eating, if you can eat nicely, if you can sleep more, if you can arrange your life where you can sleep more, you can have more sex, you're considered successful. And for a devotee, he's considered successful when he minimizes those. And if he can entirely give them up, then he thinks this is perfection. And the Goswamis, they're glorified because Basically, they gave it up, pretty much. They didn't really eat much, or they didn't really sleep much, and that's glorified. In our society, if you're wealthy enough to sleep in a nice home or a nice hotel, eat in a nice restaurant, then people will appreciate that. If you're sadhu living in a hut because you're renounced, in many countries, in India not so much, but in other countries it's not appreciated. Maybe looked on as a parasite or just a loser or even a madman. A madman is not a bad compliment. If some madman calls you a madman, it's not bad. Right? In fact, it's probably a compliment. So then Prabhupada goes on to explain what I just explained. And then he talks about another quality of a Brahman is tapasya. And tapa means heat, so tapasya means austerity, or one meaning of tapasya is to voluntarily suffer for the sake of spiritual advancement. So Prabhupada defines tapasya as suffering. One should be practiced to suffer. Suffer, that is tapasya. Tapasya brahmacharyena. Tapasya begins from celibacy. We're practiced to sex life or sense gratification. Tapasya means, first of all, stop this. Tapasa brahmacharyena. Interesting, isn't it? They are simply increasing. The Western civilization means increasing the means of sense gratification. Machine, 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 machine. And the Brahminical culture, samodama tiksha. So the Prabhupada is saying that our culture, our civilization, it's the exact opposite of Brahminical civilization, and we understand why, because it's in the mode of passion. The mode of passion and goodness are opposites. So machine, 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 make more machines, more machines. I have a lot of machines. You know, we have machines in the office here. We use them for Krishna. I have a computer, I have a camera, a stand, a recorder. Yes, we can use for Krishna, but Prabhupada said we would never build them, we would never make them. That's the mode of passion. That's that passionate society. If in the perfect world, we would be creating everything locally in villages and only what we need, and all these contraptions. Of course, these contraptions are great for preaching. But ultimately, if we could make the world Krishna conscious, we probably would throw away the contraptions because they complicate things. And they're born out of passion. And you know, sometimes when you use them, you become very passionate. Have you noticed that? They're so convenient. You can do so many things with them that it increases passion. I think all the modern conveniences, actually, they're not creating sattva, they're creating rajas. Those modern conveniences means things are easier to do. If they're easier to do and you're in passion, you'll do more. So by making things, instead of doing one thing in a day, maybe 100 years ago all you could do was a few things in a day. Now we can do many more things because they're easier to do. I don't have to hand wash my dishes, I don't have to hand wash my clothes. So that saves time. So what do I do now that I have this time? I'll just do more things. So it's increasing passion. Your free time in one way, you do more, or it increases ignorance. You go to sleep. Hey, we have a washing machine. It's great. We don't have to wash our clothes by hand anymore. Well, what are you going to do now? Well, I'll go to sleep, or I'll watch the football game. It saves that free time now. So, yeah, machine, yeah. So then Prabhupada makes this interesting statement, which I think is quite interesting, especially for a non-devotee. Tapasya means suffering, and we should suffer voluntarily. And that sounds almost like psychologically ill. But what Prabhupada means is, really, you suffer voluntarily so you don't have to suffer involuntarily. Because if you don't suffer voluntarily, you will suffer, but it'll be involuntary. And if you suffer voluntarily, that's good for your Krishna consciousness. It'll purify you. Tapasya purifies you. So it's actually suffering that will purify you. in a way that eventually it'll end all suffering. And if you do tapasya, and you suffer, so-called, but that suffering brings you closer to Krishna, then you feel very happy. So your body doesn't feel happy, but you feel happy. And material life is pretty much the opposite. Your body feels happy, but you don't feel happy. You see, tapasya is like, it's the opposite idea of sense gratification. Sense gratification, your body feels good, but inside you feel empty. There's no love there. Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, the women, wine, and flesh of beast, no love on thee bestow. There's no love in sense gratification. It's just what it is. It's you're gratifying your senses, but you're not feeling love. Right? So, when you feel love, then you're happy. Or if you feel any kind of purification or upliftment, you're happy. So that's what tapasya does. It uplifts consciousness. Sense gratification does not uplift consciousness. So all it gives you is gratification, momentary pleasure. It doesn't uplift your consciousness. Tapasya uplifts your consciousness, and therefore you feel happy. And that's why we do it. In my experience, having lived in the temple for many years, and having traveled the world, I observe, or I think I observe, that the lack of tapasya or austerity, especially voluntary, has destroyed the backbone of Americans. And Americans just can't do much austerity. They're not used to it. 100 years ago, they were used to it. And anywhere where people's lives are a little more austere, you'll find the people are stronger. They're tougher. They go with the punches, so to speak. Easier, if you know what I mean. So austerity makes us stronger, and we should be very cautious about living a life. It's not that we don't want to live a comfortable life. That's not, Prabhupada said, you live comfortably, but not extravagantly, not in a way that we become soft, that rising early, chanting our rounds, or doing the austerity of various services becomes too much difficult for us, and we just pamper ourselves, can't do anything difficult. That would be horrible to come to that level. Tapasya, you could say, keeps you on your toes. Tapasya allows you to experience the bliss of making sacrifice, of even putting your body or mind through a difficult or painful situation. But you immediately feel the benefit. Or maybe not immediately, but shortly after you feel the benefit of the tapasya. It's very purifying. So that's Brahminical life. It's simple, not extravagant. And they'll even do tapasya is like fasting and other vows, other vratas, to advance, to purify themselves. And in a materialistic civilization, the people do vratas, but it's just for sense gratification. I'll make this vow not to do this, but then I'll get something material. So, okay. So to become fit for going back to Godhead, it's not so easy. So Prabhupada says, why does he say that? Because he says that you have to make material life almost zero. Not almost zero, practically zero. Anyabhilashita shunyam. That all of the desires you have to make zero. So that's what Prabhupada's saying. So what is material life? It's eating, sleeping, mating, defending. So what's the goal? The goal is to make that zero. Well, and what if you can't make it zero? It's still the goal. So you adjust, you do what you have to do, eat what you have to do, sleep as you have to sleep, mate as you have to mate, defend as you have to mate, but understand the goal is eventually to make it zero. It's not, the goal is not, that's the way we're going to enjoy, that's what we're shooting for. That's not the way to look at it. We're shooting to get away from it. Materialists are shooting to get more of it, of course. So, then Prabhupada says, if somebody's going to join our movement, and this is very interesting, if somebody's going to join our movement, we want to see how far he's able to practice samo, dhammo, titiksha. In other words, it's not the goal of the Krishna consciousness movement just to get numbers. Hey, live in our temple, do some service. The Prabhupada's saying, not exactly like that. He has to have some sense control. He has to be able to be inclined to a Brahminical life. So you listen to what Prabhupada says. The Krishna conscious movement, our Krishna conscious center is meant for practicing samo, dhammo, titiksha. Therefore, we want to see how far he is eligible to practice the samo, dhammo, titiksha. So some new boy comes, and as soon as they are given some work that's not very good for sense, the work isn't good for sense gratification, they go away. This means they're not prepared. It is better they go away. In Bengali it is said, dushta kurute shunya goiloi. Goloa. Goaloa. Golo. If there is troublesome cows, better keep the cowshed zero without cow. Don't allow. So this Krishna conscious movement is meant for elevating the animal class to the platform of Brahmana. The sacred thread is given. He has practiced now samo, dhammo, titiksha, arjava, and he has learned what is Krishna. What he is, what is the relationship with Krishna. Now, how to act for the satisfaction of Krishna. These are Brahminical qualifications. If one is elevated to this platform, this is called sattva guna. So the heavy thing that Prabhupada's making here, that I think is heavy anyway, is that he's saying, if someone really can't be a Brahmin, he's going to spoil everything if you let him move in the temple. So, we're very compassionate. We want to bring everyone on board, give everyone a chance. And here Prabhupada's saying, well, be careful, because if someone is not Brahminically inclined, then you bring them into our association, it'll be a problem for us. Now, also for them, but more so for us. So I thought that was quite significant. Prabhupada's setting a standard very, very strictly. Yes? Very strict standard. Okay. So now Prabhupada goes on to talk about the three modes. Brahminical qualification, as we said, is sattva guna. If you remain in the lower platforms in tamaguna or rajaguna, tama means greediness and lust. That's tama. Interesting. Tamas and rajas. So Prabhupada describes what's the rajagun, the tamagun. Kama is lusty desire, and greediness not satisfied. Just living simply, you're not satisfied. This is called greediness. Vedic civilization teaches be satisfied with the minimum necessities. Don't increase unnecessary necessities. Then you have to work very hard. So that's passion, you'll work hard for it. Work, get more and more and more. That's a mode of passion. And we're seeing this going on everywhere. Okay. But then Prabhupada goes on to say that everybody's working so hard. And this is condemned in Vedic civilization. Don't work like a pig or an ass. Nayam deho bhaja niloke vishade, instructed his son. Don't work like an ass all day, all night. This is not civilization. It's animal civilization. That's the business of the hogs and the dogs. They're loitering around the street and they're just asking, where's food, where's sex? That is not civilization. So we want to bring people up to become Brahmins. Otherwise, Prabhupada said, if we don't bring them up to be Brahmins, the civilization is a failure. Okay. I think I'm going to stop and see if you have any questions. Well, all right. You don't. Anyway, see if you have any questions. Ask. If not, I'll continue. We have 2 more pages. Any questions, please? Or you want me to continue? Then Prabhupada goes back to the topic of Brahmins, and then he talks about how Krishna worshipped Sudama Vipra. Sudama Vipra was very poor. His clothes were dirty and torn. He came to the palace. Krishna put him on his seat, washed his feet. Krishna's teaching how you worship the Brahmins. And you can't worship a materialistic person, but you can worship a person who's detached. So it's human nature. Human nature is that we want to be worshipped. So if someone who wants to be worshipped is worshipped, it's not healthy. But if the person doesn't want to be worshipped, then it's healthy. Or if the person is controlled, because we should worship Brahmins. Yeah, so Eddie has a question, but I don't know if I can read it. It just says, I learned from a devotee. I have some questions. Yes, you can ask. So we're waiting for your question. Questions in Kali Yuga that Brahmins don't exist. Well, Prabhupada said, in Kali Yuga, the Brahmins may exist externally. They don't exist naturally, in a pure form. In other words, in previous ages, a pure Brahmin mother and father would give birth to a pure Brahmin child, but that's not happening because they're not following the reformatory processes that would enable a Brahminical father and mother to even, one, take birth as purely Brahminical, and two, to pass that purity on through the genes. So for to give birth to a Brahmin, there has to be a reformatory process at the time of conception. So because that's not happening, the Shastra says, therefore nobody could be born as a Brahmin unless the parents do this ritual to conceive of the child. And the parents are both Brahmins. So that's absent. So therefore it's said now everyone's born Shudra. That's the standard. Or less than Shudra. Okay. So you have to be trained to become a qualified Brahmin. That's the point. Now you might say, well, somewhere in India, boys are trained to be Brahmins. If they're trained, that's fine. But to say they're just born without the training, without the qualification, they're Brahmins because of birth, that's rejected. So then it's true, yes, by birth there aren't any Brahmins, only by qualification. Is that okay? Case of sons of devotees, are they Brahmins? Maybe, but they have to live like them. The best way to understand it is, if you're born in the family of devotees, then that's a good opportunity. Are you naturally a devotee or Brahmin? You have to be qualified, no matter what. It's just a good start if you're born in the family of devotees. Is that all right? I know Gurunishta wants me to go longer, but I don't know if I could stay awake any longer. That's the problem, somehow or other. Here, I'll read a little further what Prabhupada says. I think it'll answer your question. The Brahmins in India, the Brahmins, their sons in later ages, taking advantage of the facility offered to the Brahmins, without qualification, they wanted the facility for nothing. So Prabhupada's saying, there are many facilities given to Brahmins, and the sons of Brahmins just wanted those facilities, but they didn't want to become qualified. I'm reading a lecture that Prabhupada has given on the Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 5th chapter, 23. It's a lecture. So without qualifications of a Brahmin, they wanted the facility for nothing, very cheap. For nothing means without paying. Therefore, Brahminical culture is a failure. There should be real Brahmins. But no one's prepared to practice. Real Brahmin means samadhamma taposo cham. No one's prepared to practice. That's the problem. So you want to be a real Brahmin? Okay, here's what you do. Do some tapasya. No, I can't do that. But you want to be a Brahmin. No one is prepared to practice samodhamma titiksha, but he wants the respect of a Brahmin. This is the cause of India's culture being a failure at the present moment. First deserve, then desire. So without deserving, they desired. Therefore, the whole thing became false. Anyway, it's the same point. They want the position without the qualification. Is that okay? Anything else? Any other questions? Any other answers? Complaints? You're asking, is the son of a devotee a Brahmin? Maybe, maybe not. Okay, another doubt. Let me hear your doubt. Eddie's going to tell me her doubt, and we're just waiting for her to type it out. And then Prabhupada goes on to say that Brahminical life means no meat eating, no illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling. That's what it's all about. So we're living a Brahminical life, what we're supposed to. And when you don't engage in sin and your sense control, you're living a Brahminical life. In Vedic society, women never became Brahmins. Eddie's asking. Actually, they did. Well, based on the family. Because you'll find in the Vedas that you'll find it talks about how to match men and women, and it says, so you could marry a Kshatriya woman could marry a Brahmin man, but a Brahmin woman couldn't marry a Kshatriya man. So you're saying they didn't receive the sacred thread in the Gayatri mantra? Yeah, that was left for their husbands. But the social system is different, and that was changed. When Krishna consciousness was now being spread in society, in a different society, in a different situation, then Mahaprabhu opened it up and said, okay, we'll give this to everybody, and everybody can become qualified, so then there's no discrimination. Bhaktisiddhanta also initiated women. He didn't give them the first line of Gayatri, that was the Brahminical mantra. Prabhupada did give it, and so Prabhupada made some adjustments. So we follow that, what Prabhupada gave. And so we initiate women, and women get the Gayatri mantra, but they don't get the sacred thread. They don't require it. In some traditions, they did get the thread. It's not required. The thread is actually to keep You can't worship the deity without a cloth, the top cloth. And so if you have no top cloth, you have the thread. So of course, women always have a top cloth. Yeah, Prabhupada made some adjustments, and adjustments were made for preaching in the West, and then we just follow all the main adjustments he made. That became standard, we continue. Yeah. He was not criticized for making women Brahmins as much as allowing them to live in the ashram, the same ashram that the men lived in, obviously not the same rooms. He was criticized for marrying his disciples. It's not the duty of a sannyasi. Yeah, you could say even some had criticized him making Brahmins because we were considered outcasts, malechas, unqualified. But on the basis of Shastra, he did it. And he argued and defeated any opponents on the basis of Shastra. Yes. Good. All right. I think we will end class here. If that's okay with you. And yes, Prabhupada was he was criticized for some of his changes. Praised for some, criticized for some. It wasn't traditional. You couldn't spread Krishna consciousness being traditional. It wouldn't work. For sure it wouldn't work. Okay, so we'll end now, and we'll see you tomorrow at the same time. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol.